p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Welcome to Drive Time Exchange. As rubber hits the road, hard talk meets great music. Monday to Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on Net Radio, taking you above and beyond.
Oh yeah. In the beginning, by the sixth day morning, the whole of creation was given birth. And then God made man and give him dominion over every living creature on the earth. Tragedy in the garden, we all know it happened. Shamefully banished from Eden, we witnessed the first paradise lost. And since then his mother earth who end up paying the cost. That's why I'm pleading, Mother Earth is crying. He said to stop the polluting. Mother Earth is dying. We got to stop the polluting. Whole attitude got to change and priorities rearrange. We got to become more competent. The way we protect the environment and fight for all that it's worth. Fight to save Mother crying. In case you don't know, the planet is dying slow. What a sad way to go.
All right, everybody, and of course, this is where we welcome you inside of the Drive Time Exchange. Of course, you are listening to the Era TT Radio, taking you above and beyond. We are the heartbeat of the Caribbean. It's so good to be here in your company. And of course, inside of the Drive Time Exchange, yes, we are marshaled by none other this afternoon than Tony Fraser himself. Mr. Fraser, good day to you.
Well, I see you giving me a title this afternoon. Mr. I don't know if that is in honor of West Indies winning a match and winning a series against Pakistan on the ODI level.
Well, boy, I am surprised.
Yeah. I suppose I am surprised to some measure also. But the fellas played well in this ODI series and they deserve to win. And it has come at a good time too. I'm sure that you're aware that all kinds of conversations have been taking place over the last couple of days with regard to restoration and rejuvenation of West Indies cricket. So that when something like this happens, we feel a little bit buoyed. Those of us who have been suffering for a long, long time, we feel that there is hope into the future.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a good feeling, especially coming off over what was taking place yesterday, So maybe some people are listening now.
Yeah, wonderful. Talking about yesterday, yesterday we attempted something that probably was almost impossible to pull off without hitches. That is going live from downtown Port of Spain on a cell phone. How did it look? You in a much better position, Charlo. How did it go?
How do I what?
How did it go?
It went well, man. It went well. As I said, despite the little hitches and glitches, but it went well. I think we got what we wanted out of it. So, yeah.
It's good to honor the steel band and the steel band and the steel band's mind and women. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay, so today we turn our face to another subject, a subject of international importance and surely national importance, Trinidad and Tobago. As most of us will know, that 30 years ago, the Environmental Management Association, EMA, was fashioned to look after the environment. So many things that are happening in the environment of Trinidad and Tobago, a small island country, twin island country, however you choose to put it, is that the need was seen for an agency to look around and look after how we were dealing with the environment at a mass level and perhaps at a small level also. The individual level, all of us play a part in all of that. It's been 30 years and we are happy to have the gentleman who sits at the top of the organization now, the managing director, Hayden Romano. Is Mr. Romano there? Yes, I see his name, but I don't see his picture. Open up so
Mr. Romano, is there with us?
I am here with you. I am very much
so present.
Alive and present, and really thank you for having me, and congratulations to West Indies. I mean, so maybe meetings work.
Yes. Well, I'm too sure about that just yet. But yes. So as I indicated, the gaining consciousness of Trinidad and Tobago and small island states and countries all over the world of the environment. The only thing that we have to exist in, 30 years ago, the government established this agency to look at all kinds of aspects of the environment and how we utilize the environment, how corporations utilize the environment, and the conditions that are set down, both in terms of law, in terms of practice, in terms of the things that have to be done. I read something from your organization which was sent to me, and they talk about 4 conditions in legislative framework. Of course, you have to fashion all that you have to do within a legislative framework to force companies and individuals to comply. It can't be on the basis of I feel it to do it because I want to do it and so on. There has to be a legal framework in place. The building of public opinion and concerns about it, which I think is perhaps the most important thing, is that you have laws and bylaws. People must buy into them in a significant kind of way. And of course, the sustainability of all these projects. And over the years, over the decades, we have heard the EMA getting involved in when big projects, by industrial projects, are being put down, quarrying and so on and so on. So there are stipulations and requirements for these organizations to take life, as it were. So that's a broad overview of it, Mr. Romano. Let me hear from you what you think the organization has achieved, given those specific terms of reference that you set out.
Well, I mean, again, Tony, Frank, and I could call you Tony, right?
Of course, that's my name.
And I am Hayden.
Okay, wonderful.
Right. So, 30 years ago, and 30 years, I suppose, is in some cases seen as a long time, but it's actually quite a short time. And 30 years ago, the government, decided to establish this Environmental Management Authority. Not
institution. Sorry.
Authority, not agency.
Right.
And the reason then behind, we are told the reason behind wanting a management authority and not a protection agency, as you have in so many other jurisdictions, is because they bought in to sustainable development, and they understood that for the country to develop, you needed to have an authority looking at the environment with respect to all the developmental projects that this island, this small island development, developing state was engaging in. So the act, the Environmental Management Act.
Okay, sorry, but before you move on, and we take that desire in the context of the nature of the economy and the nature of the resources that Trinidad and Tobago possess.
Exactly.
Industrial estates, etc.
And in 1995, it was, the economy was not as well, maybe it was exactly like how it is now in 1995. I mean, but a lot was going on. Point Lisas would have been established, but we were moving into the gas economy. Atlantic LNG did not come into being as yet, but it was being thought about. So the first thing that I think the population generally don't understand is that we have to operate within the boundaries of our legislation, the Environmental Management Act. And 30 years ago, when this was happening, government was, motivated, but a little anxious in terms of what will this authority do? And therefore, although the legislation is there, it's soft legislation. To date, it is soft legislation because it's dependent on all of us, whether public sector, private individuals, to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. That is the basis of the legislation. The EMA, can't just go into somebody's property and shut down operations. We don't have that authority. If we want to shut down an operation because they're not observing or they are in breach of some environmental requirement, we have to go through the courts and get an injunction. And we've done it in a couple of occasions, but it's not something that we do very easily. I mean, because right up to us proceeding to the court, we are in conversations, we are in discussions with whoever is the perpetrator to try to get them to do the right thing.
Hayden, do I hear you saying that perhaps the legislation should be stronger and not depend on persuasion?
I think with 30 years later, we have 30 years experience, and therefore we are suggesting, and we have basically commenced the process to start re-looking at the Parent Act, especially with respect to enforcement. If after 30 years people are not doing the right thing, it means that you need a little stronger hand. And we feel the time is necessary for that. And I say that because when we were doing the last national environmental policy, we decided to do a knowledge, attitude, and practices survey, both in Trinidad and Tobago. And this would have been in 2016. So we're hoping to do one either this year or next year again. And for us, we as a people, we are very knowledgeable with respect to the environment. We basically know the right thing to do.
But you don't always do it.
Oh, hold on. So attitudes are also very good, but the practices are just not there. And our feeling is that the good practices in terms of environmental management is not there because of the soft enforcement or very little enforcement. And even with the other legislation, because let's face it, even in 1995, when the act was done, it recognized that there's so many other agencies dealing with the environment. You have the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestries and Fisheries and Wildlife Division. You have the Commission of State Lands. You have the Ministry of Energy. You have all these agencies also dealing with the environment. Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in terms of nuisance and the Summary Offences Act. And even their legislation, which is much older than the EMA legislation, the penalties are minuscule. And therefore, we think it's time, for us to have a relook at the Act. It's a good time for us to be relooking the Act because it is majority legislation.
And you haven't done so yet, but I'm sure that you will do. Not only is it our national responsibility, but we have a responsibility to the region and to the world in these times when we're talking about protecting the only environment that we have, so that we cannot be critical of the big industrial states who are doing the wrong thing every day of the life while we are doing the wrong thing also. So we have an international responsibility.
And Tony, it is for the first time there is an International Court of Justice judgment, and this was with respect to greenhouse gases. And they have said, and they don't have any enforcement, but they have stated unanimously that countries have an obligation and can be held legally accountable for greenhouse gas emissions. And one of the judges talked about intergenerational equity and really saying that present generations are trustees of humanity, tasked with handing over the earth, and that's the environment, to future generations as close as possible to the state in which we inherited it. And that's a landmark judgment, because here you have all these judges saying, we need to conserve or to protect. We need to practice sustainable development, and I think it's an amazing decision, and really, it'll be interesting to see how this decision is carried forward worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are talking with Hayden Romano, who is the CEO, the managing director of the Environmental Management Authority, and we are talking about 30 years after the organization was established, with the obvious in mind, which Hayden has outlined in some detail already, looking at the environment, understanding that the environment can be corrupted in a certain kind of way, which will make life even more difficult on planet Earth for all of us. So I want you now to take our viewers and our listeners through what you've established as the four major areas of your assignment, meaning the EMA's assignment to achieve over the period of time.
So the first thing, in terms of our assignment in the last 30 years was making sure that the subsidiary legislation was in place. And this is what we call rules. So you have the Parent Act, and under the Parent Act, you have a number of rules. So you have the Certificate of Environmental Clearance rules, with the CEC rules, and this would have been done in 2001. This is one of the first set of rules to be put in place. And I think it's what most people hear about, because any major development, and it's really activities such as hotel construction, industrial estates, hospitals of a certain size, land clearing of a certain size, marinas, ports, housing developments of a certain size, they will all require a certificate of environmental clearance. And the community or communities get involved because they are able to, as part of the process, make comments on the development, and if we see it necessary, I mean, the developer will have to do public consultations. So I think this is why this is the one that is most active and most people understand, the Certificate of Environmental Clearance rules, because coming out of that, we may request the developer to do an environmental impact assessment.
Let me ask you before you go on to the others, how have communities responded to that responsibility? In other words, they should not lie and wait for their communities to be overrun and taken over by some industrial project. Have they lived up to that responsibility?
I think a lot of communities are living up to the responsibility, and we find consultations are now more meaningful. I think the developers and their consultants are understanding what is required. They're understanding that people's concerns must be addressed, and we feel more comfortable with the consultations that have been taking place recently. We do not get involved in the consultations simply because we are the decision maker. So we will attend the consultations primarily to listen, to see if all concerns are being addressed, but not to make contributions, because we do not want it to be said that the EMA has already made a decision based on comments made at the consultation. So it is, I mean, we have to be cautious in terms of what we say and in terms of providing opinions when that is not our role. We look at the information that is before us to make a determination. We like to call it evidence-based decision making.
Yeah. Okay, but you have a responsibility. One of the other elements of your major responsibilities is to inform and educate, so that you have to make communities and individuals aware. Because, you know, sometimes we come out of an environment, come out of a history in which we are not involved, right? Things are done by government and institutions, and we allow them to happen. Has that education information program, you know, been attended to, and what has been the kind of success or not achieved?
When we look at some of the successes, and we're not going to take full responsibility for some of these successes. When we look at in terms of our environmentally sensitive species, the turtles, in particular the leatherback turtles, when we see the community activity in Grand Riviere and Matura, and really, I mean, we really have to congratulate the people from the wildlife division of the Ministry of Agriculture, who all those years ago started the program before the EMA was started and before we declared the turtles as environmentally sensitive species. And today, I mean, you know, Trinidad and Tobago is recognized as one of the largest nesting populations of the leatherback turtles, and possibly the largest population of the leatherback turtle in this Western Hemisphere. I mean, it's an amazing accomplishment, and it's an accomplishment of the communities. I mean, our support is I mean, and in many cases, they need financial support. We don't have financial support to give them, but you have, I mean, we've had some of the companies, some of the oil companies supporting them, the energy companies supporting them, other companies supporting them. And I think what we need is more support from the private sector. And we're hoping that that is going to develop as they broaden their environmental, social, and governance programs, because ESG is now a big thing, and we're hoping that's going to be translated into with respect to the various communities. Our eye care project, which is a recycling project. a recycling project which focuses on the collection of beverage containers to reduce the amount of beverage containers going into the environment. We were amazed at how motivated people were to take these, to collect their recyclables at home and take it to collection sites throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And then you had some communities like Cashew Gardens that actually, had a whole recycling program, and they expanded that into a compost program, and they really bought into environmental management. So there have been successes, Tony, and the youth, have you looked around and see young people walking around the place these days with their water bottles? It is something that is so amazing. All these young people who have bought into the fact that they are going to reuse and no longer have plastic bottles, but have their own water bottles that they walk around with. That's a big change in terms of our culture. So we think young people appear to be buying in to the fact that this is the only planet that we have, and this is the only place that we can call home.
Hayden, what are the other larger projects? You talk about consciousness with the turtles, with the plastic containers, and how you get rid of them or don't get rid of them, and so on. But industrial projects, industrial certain communities, and the sea and its usages by the international producers and explorers for carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, or what am I saying?
Energy petroleum, the whole carbon economy. For all these projects, you have community involvement. So your community comes to the consultations. Whether it's for exploration, or for actual drilling, and there are concerns. The company shows how it will mitigate against all any negative environmental impact, and the discussion takes place. Sometimes, especially people like fishermen are very much concerned in terms of the impact of the activity on the fishing industry. In some cases, there are agreements with the companies. In terms of compensation. In some cases, it's not necessary, depending on how far offshore the project might be taking place. But I think, there is. I think there's lots of improvement. I think things are happening much better. I think people are now more willing to have the conversation. Sometimes the conversations are heated, but at least the conversations take place. Let's take, some of the projects that might have been in the news. The housing development in Curep, where the EMA would have been taken to court. Because our decision, it was felt that our decision was not the right decision. As far as I know, that matter is still in court. So sometimes that happens. Where we're taken to court, and that matter is still in court. So we're waiting on a judgment from the courts. In terms of the highway just south of the Aripo Savannas, again, the matter went to court, and we had to go as high as the Privy Council. And we won in the Privy Council, and hence they were able to construct the highway. In terms of let's go further back, in terms of the aluminum smelter in Le Bray. We lost that one, and the decision was made that the project will not continue. So we, one of the good things about the EMA, because everything we do is fully transparent in something that that is in the EMA Act called a national register. So Tony, any project, you and any member of the public is able to come into the EMA and look at everything that happens with that project. Everything that happens, it's fully transparent.
Who has been the winner, capital or the environment, in some of these major industrial projects? When you feel the weight of capital and the desire, even on the part of the government, for a development to provide jobs and incomes in the future, who has been winning in that sense?
That's a hard one to answer without having the evidence or the data. But when you look around Trinidad and Tobago, when you look at the northern range, yes, there is some encroachment, but we still have quite a green northern range. When we look at the Caroni Swamp, yes, there's some encroachment, but we still have the scarlet ibis, and we still have the what they call it, the flamingos are coming in still. We still have a lot of beautiful natural areas, both in Trinidad and Tobago. I think that what we have to do is to make sure that we put things in place to preserve those areas, because in some cases it's conservation and in some cases it's preservation. And I dare say that the fact that we've been around, the EMA has been around for the last 30 years, I think we've helped in terms of the preservation of some of those areas.
I remember Professor John Spence, who of course you know of,
yes,
and who has always been concerned about arable land not being concreted over. And he fought many of those battles, and some of those battles have ended up with housing settlements, even from the government, housing settlements covering up agricultural land, and of course causing all kinds of destructive outcomes. The savannah and that runoff, the hills that have provided flooding for the city, all those items, if you like, which seem to go in favor of the industrialists rather than the environmental concerns.
Well, Tony, when you think of the savanna, and this is the Queen's Park Savanna, and all the sediments that coming down, onto the savanna and into Port of Spain, we're looking at housing developments and not industrial developments. And when you hear the reports from the Housing Development Corporation and the amount of people that are still waiting for housing or without housing, we have a big challenge. And we can't take it lightly, because governments are there to provide for their people, and there is a housing crisis. And how do you balance housing versus agricultural land? It's a challenge that we have, and it's a challenge that we face here.
Didn't I get the impression that you're walking soft in that area?
I'm not.
You're giving in to the needs of man and mammon.
Well, I don't know if we're giving in to the needs of need. We have to give in to the needs of man to a certain extent. But what we try to do is really to put the mitigating measures in place to minimize or to reduce completely impact, which we have to do. We also have to understand, and all of us have to understand, that we live on small islands, Trinidad and Tobago, small islands. And therefore, whatever we do is going to impact the environment. And therefore, we have to really, sit up and think, what can we do to make it better? What can we do to reduce the impact? Let me put a plug for government. Government has already, is showing, and we need to congratulate them that, they have the environment. They're concerned about the environment because they've already, put forward a revision of the national climate change policy, something that has not been updated since 2011. They have, agreed to the biodiversity targets for 2030. And they have signed on in terms of coral reefs and the international organization dealing with coral reefs. Those are positive signs, Tony. And we want to respect those positive signs simply because that's the place where we act. We are, concerned about the environment, and we're happy when a government is concerned about the environment. We, understand that our role as regulator, in many cases, will be at a different, it will always be a challenge to governments, and it has always been a challenge to governments. But we will continue, taking our role very seriously, understanding that we are here to be stewards of Trinidad and Tobago environment.
Okay, so we've dealt with a couple of the four major elements of what the EMA has to do. And just for our listeners and viewers, we are talking with Hayden Romano, who is the head, the chief, whatever his official title is, of the EMA, which is the Environmental Management Authority, which has the responsibility to look after the environment and to ensure and safeguard it, if you like, against all comers who would want, even the government, who would want to, endanger the land that we live in, the only one that we have. We haven't yet developed the capacity to live on Mars or Jupiter or any one of them, so we have to stick to this. Yeah, even the other elements of your responsibility.
So the other, quickly, the other pieces of subsidiary legislation includes the waste rules, which was the last to be put in place, and that was only became active in 2022. So that is very recent, the waste rules. But then we have the air pollution rules, the noise rules, and we know noise is a big challenge. The environmentally sensitive areas and the environmentally sensitive species rules. And those are all the rules under the Environmental Management Act. But the other thing that we, need to do, and this is again a requirement of the EMA, is that understanding that they have so many other agencies dealing with the environment, we need to coordinate the activities of agencies. That has been quite a challenge for us because most of these other ministries and agencies, have their own work, and most people are short-staffed. So getting them involved and getting them to coordinate with us has been a challenge. We now have environmental officers, and we're really working through with them, especially with respect to the national environmental policy. Trinidad and Tobago's national environmental policy was updated in 2018. That is actually one of the roles of the EMA. The only policy that the EMA is responsible for, again by law, is to develop this national environmental policy and submit it to the minister for the minister to get it approved in Parliament. The interesting thing about this national environmental policy is that all government ministries and agencies shall function in accordance with the national environmental policy. And therefore, what we have been doing is really trying to coordinate with all these agencies using the national environmental policy, because that is the base for all of us. All of us have to comply with the national environmental policy. And interestingly, there are 6 priorities in the national environmental policy: protecting human health and the environment through pollution control, which will be encompassed by some of our rules, especially the waste rules, the water pollution rules, the air pollution rules. Sustainably managing natural assets, and this is very important for people like the Forestry Division, the Fisheries Division, Commissioner of State Lands. Improving the local environment. And improving the local environment is not only about the government sector, the public sector. It's also about the NGO sector, the private sector, and all other sectors. How do we improve our local environment? Evolving a greener economy. And we think, the private sector understands that, and they are looking closely at how they can do business different in terms of becoming greener. Things like electric cars, things like reuse of water resources, things like planting trees, so recycling. So we're seeing a lot in terms of evolving a greener economy, fostering an environmentally responsible society. This one is so critical for us as a small island developing state. We need to be more environmentally responsible. And finally, addressing climate change and environmental and natural hazards. And, that is why we're so happy that we now have a revised climate change policy. So we are coordinating with all the various agencies. As I said, we are using the National Environmental Policy. We do have, actually, Trinidad and Tobago does have a National Council for Sustainable Development, which is tasked with looking at the implementation of the NEP, the National Environmental Policy. And this consists of both government, private sector, NGO, and the Secretariat is at the EMA, because of the coordination function that we have. The other thing that we do, Tony, is go on, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
The other thing that we do is projects. So we have been doing Green Fund projects since 2010. We also do the UN Global Environmental Facility projects and other projects as they come up. So the iCare project, which is the recycling project, is a Green Fund funded project. And as I said, we were really, very happy and about the response to iCare. And we're really hoping that soon we will have a refund system in place. So to at least some sort of incentive for people who are with these beverage containers. Similarly to what we have with glass bottles. Glass bottles we see is really not a challenge in Trinidad and Tobago because we have a facility that is recycling glass, and therefore what we need to do is to do that for everything else. So I think, and that's what we're hoping, that some sort of a deposit refund system will be put in place very soon.
A few weeks ago, I had on this program some environmentalists who are dealing with plastics in the environment. And the word is that we are not doing very well. We can perceive of it and see it in reality in a number of ways that are very visible. Flooding in downtown Port of Spain. At the end of it, you see mounds and mounds of plastic containers of all kinds that are coming into the country. I know that there are countries, even within the CARICOM region, which have determined and put out legislation to deal with plastics and to ensure that manufacturers of all kinds of products move away from the plastic container, which is detrimental to the environment.
You know, Tony, the world is not doing good with respect to plastics. You know, I was reading somewhere.
I hope you're not hiding Trinidad and Tobago.
No, not. I'm just saying, I'm just not hiding Trinidad and Tobago at all. I'm saying, you know, we might even be doing better than a lot of countries in the world, because, you know, I'm reading somewhere where in 1950s, plastic production was 2 million tons. Today, it's some 500 million metric tons. And you know, 500 million metric tons, you know, they're saying is you know, like 88 of the great pyramids of Gaza of plastic that the world is producing. And of that, I think as little as 9% of 500 million metric tons is recycled. Most of it is going to landfills or into our oceans and waterways. So, you know, this week, I think in Switzerland, there's a whole meeting with respect to plastic pollution, because the world has recognized that plastic pollution is a big problem. I mean, and now we have microplastics that is in everything that we eat. And we surely don't know what is the impact on us. So human health, I think, is what is important.
How is the EMA dealing with plastics in Trinidad and Tobago?
With the EMA, the only way we're dealing with plastics right now is through the Eye Care project. We have collected some over 4,000 metric tons of plastic since we started in 2015. Most of it goes to swim call, and they will bag it and crush it and so forth and export it. But we need to do better, and the only how we can do better is really for the practices to change. Yes, we have a lot of people are collecting the beverage containers, but we still have a lot of people throwing it in on the roads, throwing it into the waterways, throwing it into the rivers, and not only throwing plastics. We have a waste problem, because you still see all the white waste, the stoves, the fridges, and everything else, you know, just discarded at the side of the road. And therefore, I mean, we really need to step up enforcement with respect to plastic pollution. Not the EMA doesn't have any teeth there. That's really for the regional corporations in terms of the Litter Act is and in terms of other pieces of their legislation to deal with waste and waste disposal. The EMA waste rules is really for industry, and not for household waste. Again, I don't think people understand. I mean, people need to understand that when the EMA was established in 1995, the Regional Corporation Act was there. All these other acts were there, and they were to deal with those offenses. It was not for the EMA to deal with that. Similarly, I mean, you know, again, one of the biggest complaints in the country is noise pollution. And people blame the EMA for noise pollution. When the EMA was established, the Summary Offences Act was there for a long time. And therefore, residential noise from moving vehicles, and noise from bars and these sort of things was supposed to be handled by the police. The EMA's noise pollution control rules was for events, for industrial activities. In other words, you will tell us you having something, we will put it in the, we will make you put it in the papers so that everybody in your community know that you have in this thing, and we will regulate it. It's not for Tony Sunday morning deciding that he's going to turn up his music system the loudest that it's going to be. We didn't plan for that. And that is what the TTPS is supposed to deal with. We are continuing discussions with the TTPS with respect to how we can assist them and what we need to do differently. It is a conversation that is taking place. I mean, maybe it's taken too long because of we've had a lot of changes in terms of commissioners, and we look forward to talking to this one. But it's something that has to happen because noise is the major complaint in Trinidad and Tobago. Noise pollution is significant in Trinidad and Tobago.
We're a noisy people. We are talking with Nigel Romano of the EMA and the Environmental Management Authority, who is the managing director of that organization. I'm
not sure if Nigel would be happy that you're
calling. Sorry, did I say Nigel? Sorry. Sorry to you and Nigel, my good friend. Hayden Romano. Nigel must have been. Are you related incidentally?
Gosh, I do admit that on the radio, Tony. Privately.
So we are talking about the Environmental Management Authority and the work it has been doing over the last 30 years. And Chalo, let's take a break now and talk to our listeners and viewers about the organization and what we can do for organizations such as the EMA. Carry the word of the EMA to our listeners and viewers outside here. Go ahead, Chalo.
The ozone layers depleting, endless factories belching tons of pollutants in the atmosphere. Rivers and seas can't escape from Mother Earth. We constantly commit rape. They're even planning to strip the Amazon bare.
Wake up with the NETT Radio Breakfast Show. Rise and shine with Wendell Stevens and Richard Raghubarsingh, weekdays from 6 o'clock to 9 a.m. Start your day feeling good, energized, and informed as we tackle the biggest issues of the day, get you where you need to be on time, and keep you in the know about everything that matters. We bring you insightful discussions, expert analysis, and the latest updates so you're always ahead of the curve. Mornings matter. Your voice matters. And it all starts right here on New Era TT Radio, NETT Radio. The NETT Radio Breakfast Show, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. Wake up informed and stay ahead.
Charmflair Auto Services Limited, your one-stop auto repair shop, located at number 1 Industrial Lane, Charmflair, right opposite the brewery on the Eastern Main Road. Yes, we do it all. Repairs to all makes and models, from your everyday sedan to SUVs, light trucks, pickups, and panel vans. We're also the sole distributors of Davanti tires, certified VTS inspection station, plus a wide range of services: oil change, front end and suspension repairs, tune-ups, tire alignment, batteries, electrical work, radiator and cooling system, AC repairs, and accessories galore. We offer pickup and drop-off service too. Call us today at 662-6545 or 662-6572. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Charmflair Auto Services Limited, number 1 Industrial Lane, Charmflair. We do it all.
S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box.
Advertise with us on New Era TT Radio. the fastest growing streaming platform for talk in Trinidad and Tobago. Audio and video ads welcome. Elevate your brand with us. Connect with us at newera@yahoo.com or call us at 299-5156. Now what are you waiting for?
Fight to save mother. Oh, 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 mother crying. Oh, in case you don't know, the planet is dying slow.
Okay, people, as we welcome you back to the Drive Time Exchange right here on New Era TT Radio. Remember, you can get us all day, every day at newerattradio.com. Also at New Era TT Radio, where you can get us on your Alexa and, of course, all your Google devices. And, of course, during the morning time, you can get us on M&E TV between 6 and 8 a.m. And, of course, we stream to Amplia, Digicel, Flow, and Trico. Right? So those are the ways that you can get us here on New Era TT Radio. And, of course, you're free to call us because we would like to have your advertising done right here on New Era TT Radio. Right, Tony?
Absolutely. For us to stay alive, it's not only the environment, but it's advertising revenue that is required to keep us chatting and playing music and reaching out to our viewers and listeners. And, we are inviting organizations to do their advertising with us. Forget the others. We are far more capable than that. After a little bit of boasting, let's get back to where we was. Dump sites. I don't know what they are called formally, but there are dump sites all over the country that are reportedly in a horrible condition. We know of the Beetham dump because we pass up and down the highway frequently, and we see that very visible. But there are others which make the news at different times. Caxton Bay, or this one, or that one. They're in horrible condition. Is that the direct responsibility of the EMA?
So the direct responsibility of the EMA is the fact that SwimCall is in the process of constructing an engineered landfill at Forest Park, Claxton Bay. At present, they're doing their environmental impact assessment, and the EMA, once we get the EIA, will review for completeness. But all the existing landfills, but as you said, dump site would have been established prior to the establishment of the EMA in 1995. They are a big challenge, and this is why the attempt is being made to do a proper landfill in Claxton Bay by SwimCall. And of course, we are supporting them as much as we can to get them to do the right thing. So the plan will be to close Beetham and Guanapo and only have one landfill, one engineered landfill at Claxton Bay, Forest Park, Claxton Bay. And
will one central place somewhere between the north and the south suffice the needs of the country for dumping site, landfills?
You see, remember, we, like the rest of the world, trying to move to a circular economy, and a lot of the organic stuff that we dump can be composted. So really, we should be reducing the stuff that we send to these landfills significantly by recycling, by composting, and by, in some cases, reuse or repurposing. And that is the expectation as we try to move, or as we move towards a more circular economy, which is where we want to go. So yes, I mean, once all the ducks line up, one engineered landfill at Forest Park will be sufficient.
What do you mean by an engineered landfill?
So it's not a dump. So it's actually engineered with liners. I mean, so you don't get percolation through the soil, and it's engineered to handle our waste. It is not, you're not just dumping waste and covering.
So what becomes of the waste?
Go
through the process of this engineered dump site for us.
So, I mean, the engineered dump site, and you know, I'm a geologist. I'm not a landfill engineer, right? But what you do, you put bed liners.
What is that?
So it's a material that will prevent any of the leachate, which is really dangerous from these sites, percolating into the ground and going into the groundwater. Right? You're still putting in the waste and compacting the waste and filling, but it is going to be safe for both human health and the environment.
Big question. What becomes of those dump sites, which have been going through the process for perhaps hundreds of years?
Well, I mean, you need to get rid of the methane, the gas, and you could, put them into parks and that sort of thing, as have been done in other parts of the world. It's close to our Caronies wetlands, so there's a possibility that you could put it into some kind of a park or something, but not, I mean, no, people can't live on it and that kind of thing unless you remove all the material there. There've been other interesting ideas in terms of changing the waste into energy. So that is the next possibility. But it has to be, I mean, somebody needs to sit down and do the work, and possibly the work is taking place with respect with what life will be there after the sites are closed.
To be deliberately cynical of the hearing of these engineered land sites, landfills, and removing those dangerous landfills as they now exist now. We've been hearing about that for some time. I had black hair all around when I started reporting on those matters. Now it's all gray. And I'm sure you had black hair at that time also.
We could have that attitude, or we could look at things that happened. The Solomon Hochoy Highway to Point Fortin. Did you ever think that will happen? But this has happened. It's there. It's existed. What else? I mean, that was long in coming. A new block in the Port of Spain Hospital. I mean, or the San Fernando Teaching Hospital, or all those other hospitals that are around the place. We can be cynical, and I suppose, I mean, it is. But I think we can also be very, very positive and see some of the positive things that is happening. I did not think we would have been, based on the slaughter that used to happen with these leatherback turtles, the highest nesting place in this part of the world. I didn't think so. The way how people were slaughtering these animals. So there are positive things happening. Maybe not enough, but there are positive things happening.
Now, I know this, to be fair to the EMA, I know this, what I'm going to say now, may not be a responsibility of yours, but a kind of neighborhood responsibility, that is a kind of contingent upon your major responsibility. I look at some of our green spaces. The Queen's Park Savannah is one of those places. I grew up close to the Queen's Park Savannah. I still live close to the Queen's Park Savannah. And the lower third, the southern third of the Queen's Park Savannah has all been destroyed over the years. I mean, are we and other, incidentally, and other green spaces across the country? Yeah, it may not be your responsibility, but I'm sure that you have a concern in that regard.
I have a concern, and I think, hopefully, whatever degradation with respect to the savannah is now complete. I hope that is it. That there will be no further paving or any other structure on the savannah. I mean, Carnival is a thing for all of us. I mean, it is a major cultural event. And I think now it has sufficient space for the Carnival. And, hopefully, that will be the end of any construction in the savannah. So, do we have enough green spaces? I don't know. Do we maintain them properly? Maybe not. I mean, maybe we can do a much better job in terms of maintaining our green spaces. And I think, we maybe the citizens need to hold the regional corporations or the city corporations or the borough corporations responsible for their green spaces.
Yeah, that gives me a thought. I would bring them here one day. These regional corporations, and it's not only the Queen's Park Savannah, I passed Guaracara Park about a year and a half ago. It's all bush. It used to be an international cricket ground. It used to be a place for sports and so on. Now it is overrun with latro. The long time people call it latro.
Yeah, it is. Again, competing and conflicting demands. I mean, priorities. Guaracara was part of a company, and was maintained by the company. Once the company failed, or the company, what they call it, folded, it's become a challenge. Who is to maintain it now? And maybe when we're making decisions, we really have to think of some of these things.
Hayden, in this regard, what strikes me often is our sense of, and I'm not talking about the agency now, I'm not talking about the authority, I'm talking about the general public. We seem not to have an environmental consciousness about all kinds of things, not only squares and parks. Woodford Square is a disaster, total disaster in terms of the environment and the keeping of the grounds. No more green spaces, it's just people up and down trampling on it and so on. And I wonder if we are sufficiently conscious as a people of the importance of these things.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel that we're very conscious and we're very environmentally conscious, and then the next day you wonder when you see the garbage and the garbage dumps all over the place, and people people still throwing stuff out of their cars. When you go to the beaches and you see how people leave the beaches, you really wonder. You came to enjoy a certain environment. Why you're not leaving it maybe even better than you got it? Someday I went, I don't remember where it was, but there was actually somebody picking up litter. And the person, was it Las Cuevas? The person came to the beach, but the first thing that they did was to pick up the litter that was there, that they met there. And I thought, wow, amazing. Maybe more of us need to do that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right, let me come to one that I'm sure is the responsibility of the EMA. And I hear reports about it. When I used to be reporting and head of a newsroom, we did quite a number of stories. These quarrying operations that seem to come up like a zombie umbrella. You know, it's a zombie umbrella. And, you know, in the morning you see this thing spring up. What is happening there? It's governments talk about it, the police talk about it, the EMA talk about it, and they continue. What's the story there?
Well, so again, the quarries need to be licensed under the Minerals Act, which is the responsibility of the Ministry of Energy. However, to get a license, one of the requirements is a certificate of environmental clearance from the EMA. So that is for people who are doing quarrying legally. They will go through the process. They will get their CEC. They will get their town and country planning approval. They will get their WASA approval. They will take all those to the Ministry of Energy and they will get their license. However, illegal quarrying is a different story. And I mean, it mightn't appear like if it's gaining much traction, but there now is a multi-agency task force that is treating with illegal quarrying. And I think they're making progress. And hopefully as the months go by, hopefully we will see more progress. But I think they're making progress because I think we finally realized that, can't be handled by one agency. You need the support of all the agencies.
Okay. But whose responsibility it is to allow for quarrying? Isn't there a process that whoever the quarriers plural are, they have to come to the EMA or some such agency to get the permission to do the quarrying? Is the EMA sledged into that?
No. If you're doing it illegally, you don't need to go to anybody.
No, I'm talking about before you're going to do it or to allow you to do it in the first instance.
No. But once it's illegal, there's no allow. You go in.
Okay, but you're missing my point. My point is that people go in and do it illegally,
right,
without the permission of the EMA or whatever government agency is responsible. Right. And how is it allowed to happen? Can the EMA not step in when they discovered this thing and say, friends, you can't do this?
Once it's discovered, people go on site. And when you arrive on site, there is nobody there.
Yeah, but it happens. It continues to happen.
So, but you cannot. I mean, you have to find somebody on the site, quarrying the site, to hold them accountable. And that is what the task force is now, coordinating and attempting to find these people who are responsible.
This task force, it has been established, and is the EMA part of this?
We are part of the task force. I mean, but it's primarily run by the police service, the TTPS. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, it is clear that the persons involved have to be taken seriously.
I love that phrase. People have to be taken seriously.
I'm trying.
Criminals, you mean?
I'm not going to cast I'm not going to cast aspersions on anybody, but
so is there any attempt by the EMA? So you've discovered a site which was illegally quarried for X number of years.
Right.
Is there something you can do now to close off that site to ensure that either the original quarrier or some new quarrier comes in and continues?
No, what we do is to report it to the various agencies. So which will include the police, the Ministry of Energy, once we find, something that is illegally happening. In terms of closing off sites, they're much too, these sites are much too expansive for anybody to be able to close off anything. What they need to be, we need to do is to really monitor and see how we could put an end to this illegal quarrying.
Give our listeners and viewers, Hayden Romano, the chief of the EMA, give our listeners and viewers a sense of how many such sites exist in the country.
That is going to be very difficult, Tony. I really have no idea. It's not something, that is something I have to be prepared for you, but there are a lot of sites. Especially in the Valencia Forest Reserve. There are also legal sites.
Okay.
But it is something that it has been a challenge. It has been a significant challenge. And not only a significant challenge, because this is illegal activity. It's a significant challenge to our water resources, especially during the wet season, where you have all this sediment, clogging up the water facilities. So it is something that we seriously need to look at, because it's causing us problems, and it's costing us a lot of money in terms of water treatment.
Are you convinced that governments, plural governments over the 30-year period that the EMA has existed, have been sufficiently concerned with dealing, because it's, in a way, it's outside of the capacity of the EMA. I don't know that you have a police service to go and deal with these fellows and so on. But have governments been sufficiently conscious and concerned about these illegal quarrying sites going on?
The EMA, actually have an environmental police unit. However, our environmental police unit consists of only 10 members, and they are not. They're primarily for breaches under the EMA. So they're the ones who go out there and do the noise measurements at events. Things to do with our environmentally sensitive species or environmentally sensitive areas. They are not equipped in terms of illegal quarrying. As governments, diplomatically, I'll say, attempts have been made, and I think, hopefully the attempts will continue, but I don't think we've had major successes.
Right. What is required? What are some of the things that are required to deal with the situation in a significant manner?
Well, unless you can police the site almost 24/7, because a lot of these activities are happening in the still of night, in the still of early morning. So they might start their activity at 8 o'clock in the night or 7 o'clock in the night and finish at 4 o'clock in the morning. So unless the state and really it has to be, the protective services are out there treating it, then you're not going to get it. So as I said, the multi-agency task force is a good start. What we need to continue.
Yeah. But there is another element of it hidden. The materials that are taken from these sites have to be sold to somebody. Often respectable contractors and builders and whoever else. There must be some way of tracking the materials that come from these sites illegally quarried to people who respectable contractors and whoever else sell these things to make a trace between the quarrying and the purchasing and the use of the quarrying material.
So a long time ago, I really don't remember when, there was a plan to set up a system of weigh bridges. So all material coming out of that northeast Trinidad would have to go, and all aggregate would have to go over weigh bridges. And
sorry, what do you mean by weigh bridges?
So scales. Okay. Scales to weigh the material, and you will have to say where the material came from. So and once we decide on this, it means that we'll have to, this will have to be a 24/7 operation based on the fact of when this material is leaving. So that is a possibility, so that then you're able to track where the material is coming from. And you really will need to put in a lot of, checks and balances in terms of the material. Because there's also, there are two ways out of there. You could also, go the next way and go along the East Coast, So it is a challenge, but it's not insurmountable.
In a country like this one, where there is an allegation of corruption every Monday morning, every government that goes out of office is charged for a litany of corrupt activities. It's happening right now, and it happens every time that there is a change of government. There is corruption and so on. Some people will say that somebody greasing somebody's hand there's a calypso to allow the coochie to pass or something like that.
Somebody allowing the cocaine pass.
Is that a reality that happens?
Boy, that's not a question for me. I have no idea. I like you.
You're a diplomat.
I am just like you. I hear all the stories. I see the news some nights, not every night. I see the news some nights and I hear the stories. And, it's down to accountability, down to accountability. We at the EMA have, it's a word we have tried to take seriously. So every year, our annual report is due to the minister in end of April of every year. And we make sure that we get our annual report to the minister at the end of April of every year. So our 2024 annual report is now with the ministry, and that will include our financial statements for 2024, fully audited, our achievements, state of the environment report. So maybe you need to have a look at it, Tony, with the 2023 annual report, and all the annual reports before that will be on our website, www.ema.co.tt. So we hold ourselves accountable. The public holds us accountable through our national register, where they come in and they look at everything that the EMA does. If they feel strongly enough that we didn't do a good job, they will, ask a judicial review. And something we've become accustomed to, because, we feel that people have a right to question our decisions. Government questions our decision all the time. So it's, you know, I mean, it's where it's the space that we are in, but we have held up ourselves to an accountability framework, and we really want to maintain that as much as possible.
What of the, I presume that the EMA is the responsibility of the government to fund.
Yes.
In other words, you don't go out and make money
Well,
of your own accord. How has the government, how have succeeding governments been with regard to funding the needs of the organization?
well, it's been a challenge. The highest amount I think we got might have been around 54 million, and that would have been in maybe 2014 or 2015. In 2016, like everybody else, I think it was 2016, we had to take a cut. I mean, I think everybody had to take the 7% cut. And since then, our budget has been 40 million. To run the organization, we think we need, and to run it properly, we need around 70 million. So you see, we almost getting 50% of what we just over 50% of what we require.
So what has the organization done to fill that gap?
So what we've done,
employees and materials and so on.
So what we have done is, one, all of us, I mean, because I mean, we're really blessed with some really fantastic, dedicated, committed people. So all of us really go above and beyond, and all my employees, and I really congratulate all of them. And we actually have people who have been here since 1995, who started off with the organization. We have also looked at projects, I mean, whether it's Green Climate Fund projects or Green Fund projects to help in terms of funding, staffing. We have, I mean, re-examined, we are looking at the fees we charge for our various permits. So at this point in time, whether you're doing Atlantic LNG plant or a major chemical plant or a single dwelling house, the charge for the CEC is $500. And that has been there since 2001.
So you mean a homeowner, home constructor pays the same amount as an industrial plant?
Yes.
Wow.
$500. Yes. So
and that has remained like that for 30 years?
Since 2001. The rules came into being in 2001.
24 years then.
Yeah. So that is something that we're looking at. The water pollution rules, based on a Privy Council decision, was revised in 2019. We lost the case because the Privy Council said our fees for the water pollution rules was not aligned to the National Environmental Policy polluter pay principle. And therefore, I mean, so you know what I mean? People who are polluting in terms of the water pollution rules are pay fees that are something that are more, I mean, in line with international standards. The big thing that we're doing right now, I mean, and we're really excited about, is to becoming accredited to the Green Climate Fund. Accreditation will mean, for the level that we are being accredited for, will mean that we'll have some $50 million available in terms of supporting climate change projects in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll also be, I mean, the first direct access entity in Trinidad and Tobago, so the first local direct access entity. So we're very excited about that. We're very motivated about that. And we're really hoping that we will meet all the requirements for the board meeting in October. So yes, we understand, because we live in Trinidad and Tobago, so we have to understand the financial situation. So we understand the financial situation, and we are looking to see how we could support. Support the organization more.
Right. So we are talking with Hayden Romano, not Nigel Romano. Hayden Romano, who is the executive director of the EMA, the Environmental Management Authority, and we are talking about, we have been talking about, the environment, the responsibility of the EMA, the kinds of achievements that have been made, and I think he has agreed that there are some areas which are outstanding and which require a whole lot more effort and resources to be inserted, and as he indicated right at the top, the whole legislative framework in terms of holding people responsible, etc., needs to be transformed for the EMA to function in a significant kind of way. So Hayden, as we wind down this discussion, can you list for our viewers and listeners what you consider to be what the organization considers to be the major achievements of the organization, and of course the outstanding things that you still have to do, in part or in whole?
Well, let me start with outstanding things so I could end on a high note. Right? So, we track how we're doing with respect to the EM Act. So the EM Act requires us to do A, B, C, and D. In terms of how we're doing there, we have achieved, or we are doing, over 90% of what is required in the Act. And sometimes tell my people we're doing the easy things, because the other percentage is things like incentives. How do you create incentives for industry to do the right thing with respect to the environment? That we feel we have to continue discussions with the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Trade, the Ministry of Planning, our line ministry, to see how we can incentivize people, how we can excite people to do the right thing for the environment. Because it cannot only be penalties, there must be incentives. Interestingly, when we did over the water pollution rules fees, the incentive there is for reusing water. You get credits for reusing water. So you have your processed water, you treat it, and you reuse it, maybe for your lawn or for your cooling towers or something else. You will get a benefit there. So that is something, and those are the kinds of things that we're looking at when we talk about incentives. So
before you go on, you talk about 90% achievement, but I'm sure that you'll agree that the 90% really should have been larger. In other words, there are other things that you were supposed to do, but perhaps not were supposed, but that could have been done rather than that you were supposed to do. And therefore, there are some outstanding elements of what are the things that are required.
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. The big outstanding item is incentives.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have incentives.
Incentive to what? To whom?
Incentives to primarily the private sector for doing the right things with respect to the environment.
Okay.
We have not touched that at all. And that is part of the legislation. I think they wanted to have not only the stick, but they wanted to have the carrot. It's a really interesting piece of legislation because they actually thought that they needed to have incentives, and that we have not done as yet. And part of the reason we did not do that is that we were a bunch of scientists or a bunch of physical and biological scientists. And finally, we now have an economist on board who is helping us in that area. So and the economist has only been here for the last maybe 2 or 3 years. So that person only came on board in the later years. And now, again, because we're also understanding that maybe we need to speak a different conversation. Because when you're speaking with politicians, maybe the language cannot be scientific and biological. Maybe it needs to be more financial
and political.
Well,
some of those fellas don't hear well, outside of politics. I know I've been dealing with them for 50 years, but that's another story.
You're more experienced.
Yeah. All right, so
than me. So that was I said. So that's the challenge. The challenge in the act is the incentives. And the other half of the question was, it just went right off.
You have to come to the reality at some point.
Yes, you have to come to the reality at some point. Yeah. The things that we've been doing well, we feel that in terms of our permits, we get them out. We have deadlines. I mean, the law gives us deadlines. We have to respond to you when you put in an application within 10 days. And we have to, once we get all the information from you, we need to respond to you within 30 days. We have, over 95% of the times, we have met our deadlines. So we're we're very confident with respect to that. A lot of people complain in terms of we take too long, but they never say how long they took in terms of providing the information for us. Because most of the time we are awaiting the information from them. We are also ISO 9000.
No penalties involved in not coming up with the information in sufficient time?
No penalties towards them. No penalties. So a lot of people are consistently asking for an extension. And generally, we do give them the extensions.
Specifically with regard to Tobago, we know very well there are some issues in Tobago which Tobagonians hold very dear to them. We know of the catastrophe with the last hotel, that a particular piece of land that was protected and so on and so on. Tobago, as has been argued and is well known, is a kind of sensitive environment. It is not an industrial site like Trinidad and Tobago. Are there special considerations for Tobago's development as that the EMA may have mapped out a kind of requirement beyond which no one is allowed to go in terms of putting down industrial plants, even hotels? Is there something like that that will guide the EMA's consideration in handing out a certificate?
So remember, we are looking at the activity in terms of the approval for the development to take place and the approval for the land to be developed. That is the authority of the THA and the Town and Country Planning Division. So they give and sometimes it's just an outline approval that maybe this activity can happen there, and then the person will come to the EMA to make sure that they can get their certificate of environmental clearance, because they won't move forward in terms of giving them final planning approval if the EMA is involved and if the EMA requires an environmental impact assessment. Most of the big projects in Tobago, we have required, because of how sensitive the environment is, they have required an environmental impact assessment. And therefore, that's what we use before we make a decision in terms of the project.
Who does that assessment? The EMA officials?
No. Generally, the developer will engage consultants, and the review committee will establish a review committee, which will not only be EMA officials. We will ask Town and Country Planning to help us. We'll ask Ministry of Works. We'll ask the various THA divisions in Tobago. Sometimes we request NGOs like the Council of Presidents of the Environment, COPE. So even engage NGOs in terms of the review process to make sure that we cover all the bases.
All right. The outstanding objectives of the EMA, which have to be achieved both in terms of the administrative and legal matters and the projects which have to be done. What are those, immediately outstanding activities which have to take place?
Well, some of the immediate activities that have to take place is our environmental police unit. We need to figure out where we're going with our environmental police unit, because our unit was established since 1999 as a pilot project. And I think the pilot now needs to be, we need to decide where we're going with that pilot.
Pilot needs to be a captain by now.
Yes, I think so. I think we need to decide where we're going with the pilot. And we're having those discussions with the TTPS, because our EPU are all SRPs. So they're all SRPs. And that is important because we need them to have the police powers in terms of the enforcement, like the Summary Offences Act. And that worked for us because remember, the EMA don't have the powers to shut down an event. So the police would have shut down an event in the Savannah, a carnival event in the Savannah, Wild Goose, and we actually had to go right up to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council said they had the authority because there was nuisance. So it's very clear with a Privy Council decision that the police is able to shut down events that because of nuisance, using the Summary Offences Act. The other thing that we're looking at is the whole organization structure of the EMA, especially now that we're expecting this GCF accreditation in October. So we need to strengthen the whole structure of the EMA to handle this new responsibility in terms of the global climate facility.
What of the expertise within the organization? And you talked a moment ago about the funding levels moving from the requirement of, I think you said 70 million to 40 million. Are you having the kind of expertise, quantity and quality required in terms of the full functioning and capacity of the EMA?
We have sound expertise in a lot of areas. Specialist expertise we sometimes need to contract. So every now and then, if something comes in and we feel, that we need assistance, we will contract a consultant to look at it for us. Especially with some of these EIAs, where, I mean, the person might have done some sort of a risk assessment that we're not comfortable, that we can handle, we will go out and get a consultant. And we think that works for us. Our staff, though, I mean, you know, they have grown tremendously, and we really have, you know, some experts, I would say, in terms of what they do. Whether it's in terms of the air pollution rules and examining greenhouse gases, because we are the repository in terms of all the information on greenhouse gases for our reports to the UN FCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So we have to collect all these reports. We also have our own air quality monitoring network. We now have 9 stations in Trinidad and Tobago. The number will move to 10, with 8 in Trinidad, 2 in Tobago, and it's real time. It's available again, www.ema.co.tt, and you can see what is your air quality at this time. And of course, it's very important in terms of Sahara dust. And a lot of people, I mean, are suffering, I mean, with the amount of Sahara dust that we're now experiencing.
So Hayden Romano, who is the Managing Director of the Environmental Management Authority, thanks for coming and talking about some of the challenges, some of the achievements of the EMA. And I'm sure that you will agree that there are some formidable challenges ahead, more so in a world that is becoming even more environmentally conscious, and all of the dangers that surround small island states like ours, and more so a small island state that is involved in a lot of industrial production, so that we are at a point of danger. And we wish you the best, and I'm sure we'll be calling upon you into the future to come talk to us and give our listeners and viewers some appreciation of the work of the EMA. Thanks for coming, and all the best to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and all the best to you and your team. Thank you.
Take care. Chalu.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting there. Thank you very much, Mr. Romano. Yeah.
And since then his motherhood
all right, so that's where we're going to leave it for today, Tony.
That's right. And for me, for the week, because Andy Johnson takes over on Wednesday and Thursday, you get a different voice, a different face. I don't know who's better looking, but you get a different voice and face and a different perspective on what's happening around Trinidad and Tobago, and indeed the world. So come back next week. I'll be with you, but tomorrow and tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, Andy Johnson will be here with you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So enjoy the rest of your week.
And just before you go, Charlo, inform our listeners or viewers what time the program will be repeated tomorrow.
Oh yes, please don't forget that around 8:20, 8:25, anywhere in that region there, tomorrow morning you can get the rerun of this program right here on NewEraTTRadio.com. All right, so Tony, thanks much.
Take care.
The ozone layers depleting, endless factories belching tons of pollutants in the atmosphere. Rivers and seas can't escape from Mother Earth because the comet rape. They're even planning to strip the Amazon bare. Acid rain on the nations, species haunted to extinction. A roller coaster ride to self-destruction. Stop mankind from digging a certain grave. We got to get together, this Mother Earth we must save. That's why I'm begging, Mother Earth is crying. You say to stop